My name is Dwane Adle, and I've been a longtime club member and addict. So today, a little bit about me real quick. I'm a licensed architect. I do commercial interiors. I'm an interior designer and have a passion for Ken. And so I kind of start out my presentation because our world forever changed in May 9th of 1959 as a new concept in dolls entered the American Toy Fair in New York City, and as we all know, it was Barbie. So none of us would be here today if it wasn't for this little piece of vinyl. And she was advertised as 11 inches tall with a waterfall of blonde or brunette hair. Barbie was the first mass-produced doll in the United States with adult features. So we always had the little baby dolls and stuff, but this is kind of the first time that an adult featured doll. The woman behind it was Ruth Handler, who co-founded Mattel with her husband, Elliot, in 1945. So the story goes, after seeing her young daughter ignore her baby dolls to play with paper dolls of adult women, Handler realized there was an important niche in the market for a toy that allowed little girls to imagine the future and how they would fit into it. The success of Mattel is in part due to this new form of marketing that was just coming out in the late 50s, where they could direct market to kids. Their major sponsor of the Mickey Mouse Club TV program in 1955 helped them to broadcast those commercials directly in, and then the kids went to their parents and requested the toys versus the toy stores or the other forms of marketing on the day. They used this medium to promote their new toy, and by 1961, we know that Barbie was an enormous hit. So where do you go from here? Well, we go to Barbie's world. So as early as 1959, when Barbie came out, little girls were asking for a boyfriend or a boy doll, and they kept at it. They were very vocal in the marketplace, but it took to 1961 to realize. So in 1961, at the American International Toy Fair, March 11th, to be exact, we have the introduction of the Ken doll. Now, a lot of ads put him at 12.5 inches tall. We don't know if they were measuring the round base. He's about 12 inches tall. And he came with a flocked crew cut with blonde or brunette again to match Barbie. And he had a 6-piece jointed body with painted blue eyes, and he wore red bathing trunks, cork sandals, and he came with a yellow towel. So I borrowed this little setup from someone online had posted a museum display where they had used the Measure of Man book cover behind the Ken. I said, wow, that is the coolest thing. So I kind of borrowed this from a post. But in the beginning, Ken was marketed to boys and girls. And it wasn't until later on in the program that we'll see where that kind of direction changed a little bit. So we have the first Ken in his box. The first box is a little different, like the first Barbie box. It shows different fashions and different graphics than the second box. The first Ken came without the beach jacket. He should just have his little yellow towel behind the booklet. And then there was a department store exclusive, which we call the Brownette Ken. And he has a little bit reddish hair. He has different eyebrows. And so he's a little bit more distinguished than if you find a blonde or brunette. They're a little bit harder to find because they were more of a department store special. Starting with Ken, we could have a side discussion on his package, but let's just say it's a bone of contention in the world. Remember, this was still the 1960s. And the design team was against doing anything. They just wanted flatness. But they kind of said, okay, we want him to look well in clothing, so we'll give him something. So it's more of a social commentary that it is today than it was back in 1960s. it was a simple marketing decision. So, and the doll was named after Ruth Handler's son, Ken, and let's just say he took a lot of teasing in school. When Ken first came out in 1961, there were very few orders for him. A lot of the department stores were enamored with Barbie, but they didn't quite know where Ken was going to fit into the market. So they didn't pre-order him. Well, he sold out immediately. I mean, it was kind of this quick, like everyone was clamoring for him. They couldn't get enough, which made him an instant success, which continued his future on securing his place in history. So a lot of people took the first Ken and they kind of played with him in the water and stuff, so he kind of ended up with male pattern baldness, his flocking would come off. So Mattel kind of said, this is not gonna work. What can we do to change that? So then we came out with the second version of Ken, which is the painted-haired Ken. And then the painted-haired Ken followed by, so here's the painted-haired Ken. They added the beach jacket with the second version of the flocking, and they changed his box. You can see the difference in the box. He's actually got the red trunks on, and his graphics are a little bit more refined. So with the success of Barbie, we all know that the clones or the knockoffs were soon to follow. It didn't take long for the other companies to completely knock off the Ken doll at a dime store version, a cheaper market, but they actually sent the real dolls overseas, had them molded from the direct doll, and then reproduced the product. So some believe that leading the success of Ken and the first version of Ken, that other famous dolls were soon to follow. One that we could mention is G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe didn't hit the market until 1963, 1964. Well, Ken came out in 1961. So with that success led to other dolls saying, well, we could do something similar, and they just spun the same kind of idea into a different world. In the shadow of the success, many more characters were also introduced, including Ken's best friend, Alan. As Barbie became popular and Ken became popular and Midge, they kept adding to Barbie's world, and even though he's not a Ken, he's significant in the Ken history to get a buddy. Then we started with adding bend legs, and we kind of hit an end point of what we consider vintage. And this is kind of up to 1967, 68. Ken disappeared for a year and came back with what we call the new look. So again, remember Barbie and Ken's world, Mattel is always looking for something new, fresh, because you've got to engage the kids and you've got to have sales. So with that, Robert Redford and all these other male characters, Dobie Gillis was no longer popular, so now we had Mattel reintroducing Ken as the new look, which is kind of that Robert Redford look. And then we have kind of getting into, again, looking for new things. We have things like live action, where he can dance on stage. And remember, these all follow similar lines in Barbie's world. I don't have one. I was going to bring one. So the first African-American male doll was Brad. He was introduced as a boyfriend of Barbie's good friend, Christy, who was also introduced in 1968. He was marketed as a friend of Barbie and not Ken. So that's kind of significant. Alan was Ken's friend, but other boys in the line were Barbie's friend. He was not a black version of Ken. He had his own unique head mold, African-American head mold. In the 1970s, we wanted to keep, again, kids interested in different techniques. So even though Ken had crossed a barrier in 1968 with a complete image change, nothing compares to the dramatic changes that took place in 1973. He had long hair, along with facial hair. It took Ken 11 years to get real hair. And so what you would do is you had this little felt packet and you would peel off facial pieces and you would kind of stick them on the Ken doll. And then they were famous for their gimmicks, like little hands that, the little lobster claws, so Barbie and Ken could grab and hold things. The live action, which I showed you. The mod hair Ken was more that natural style that we were getting into, that mod era, and he was the first ever rooted hair Ken, as I said. And he was known for, you could kind of comb his hair like Barbie's. He is also one of the most influential Ken dolls ever made. And he's known in the Ken world as kind of ushering in the mod movement. And we'll see this kind of beard, shaving, kind of fun with hair Ken follow through the line. Every couple years, Mattel introduces kind of a shaving fun Ken or some sort of a beard play Ken. In 1976, we have the Now Look Ken, can be found in different variations, and as we move to the late 70s, we're noticing a change from different colors into what's known as the pink box. The change in the box color is a pivotal point in our history as collectors, and some people call it the dreaded pink box, some people call it just the pink box era. I think it kind of depends on what you're following through in your line. But from this point forward, very few exceptions will be non-pink. And some people call it the play line. It's kind of an important point in Ken's history also. I'll step back a second. So we have the Malibu era that was introduced in 1975. Along with Barbie, Ken got everyone was kind of tan obsessed, so we have a tan version of Barbie, Ken, and Friends. Then here's the Busy Hands, and then we have the Superstar era. So kind of 1978, 1979, we usher in kind of that next progression in eras, and we call it the Superstar era. And with that, we see Sport and Shave Ken. This is kind of a significant Ken doll. He actually has muscles, so if you bend his arm, he has a little band, and you can pop the band off of his muscles. He's kind of in association with Big Jim. They kind of use the Big Jim arms, but people were wondering if Ken had kind of wandered out of the boy market, because at this point you could still, if you wanted a little boy to emulate his dad or to know what it was like to kind of be a man, you could still kind of get him a Ken doll. But when things turned pink, less boys would be interested in getting a pink box for Christmas or their birthday. So this was a thought that maybe it was a ploy to reintroduce Ken to a boys market with more of that Big Jim approach of muscles and beard, and like it says on the box, let's see, it says, shave him, he's athletic, he's all man. So we'll see the Malibu jump in and out as we go through Ken's era. And then kind of another big step for Mattel, both in the Barbie line and in the Ken line, is in the 80s. And that's introducing the first black Barbie, first black Ken. So the sensational Malibu line was the first actually African-American branded Ken doll, and he came in two versions. He came with the kind of the afro hairstyle, and then he came with the molded hair. So a lot of collectors like to find this version because he just has this really cool hair. And it also is the start of when Mattel is looking at different versions. So we actually have the Hispanic head mold. So again, this is significant because they're no longer just friends. They are Barbie and Ken as different pieces of our culture. And then this is kind of as the regular Ken showed up. Then we kind of keep going, and by 1984, we have Dream Date Ken. He's called the perfect arm candy for Barbie. So this is kind of Ken's ultimate, he's known as the accessory of Barbie. A lot of us like to think that he's his own man, but he is kind of marketed in the Barbie world. So he sports a sleek black jacket and bow tie, gray pants, pink cummerbund, and rose. Dream Date Ken was ready for a night out with his favorite girl or favorite doll. And then we have, again, just marketing techniques. We have day to night Barbie and Ken, where you can switch and turn their jackets and stuff around and give them different looks for whether they're at the office. Then we kind of get into the era where Gem and the holograms are really popular, and Mattel feels that they're missing out on a great marketing opportunity, so they come up with Barbie and the Rockers. Well, Barbie and the Rockers originally didn't have a Ken, but they introduced Ken the next year so that Ken could be part of the Rockers community. And then we have Animal Loving Ken, which we'll see later on if we're all familiar with Toy Story. This is kind of the Ken that they used to model part of his popularity in Toy Story 3. And then in 1991, we get the first anniversary doll, which is a 30th anniversary, and it's the porcelain, so they're a little harder to integrate with your doll line. He actually has wife beater and boxer shorts on under his tuxedo, and he comes with a little metal 30th anniversary Ken 1961 wrist tag, and he didn't sell right out. He wasn't that popular. What was popular was Totally Hair Barbie. One of the best-selling dolls that Mattel has ever had. So they came up with a Totally Hair Ken, and you had, depending on which version you had different hair gels, and you could hair play with Barbie and Ken and do a lot of fabulous different fashions for them. Ken is known also for controversy, as in Barbie world. Barbie's always being criticized for her size, or if you blew her up to human proportion or whatever. Along came, in 1993, Earring Magic Ken, which was very popular with Earring Magic Barbie and Friends. And he comes with a little ring on a necklace where you could attach little charms for your Barbie doll, or the little girl could wear them as earrings. This has been reported, and I don't have confirmation, to be the most profitable Mattel Ken doll in history. The reason was because he became a gay icon. We explained his accessories. So if you look at it, he's wearing a purple vest, pink mesh shirt, and he has a pierced left earring. There are two hoops accessories, one worn as a pendant and the other attached to his vest. Mattel's marketing and communication manager explained the company had surveyed young girls at the time to see what they wanted to see in a new boyfriend for Barbie. And at the time, raves and going out and partying, and it was very popular. So this is kind of what we call a 3-year-old girl's version of party wear, purple, right? Every little girl loves purple. So Mattel, because of the controversy, immediately pulled what they could and discontinued them, but people put them on a recall list and people refused to have them recalled, and they bought every one that they could find. Here we have again back to Shaving Fun for 1995. Then we get into so we're kind of regular play line, and then all of a sudden we hit the Barbie collectors market. This brings us to Harley Davidson Ken. Rumors surfaced preceding the first Harley Barbie 3 years prior, what it would be like, the novelty of adding a Ken into the mix with the third issue of the Harley Davidson Barbie. The Harley Davidson Ken and Barbie number 3 were available at Toys R Us stores and their websites, and at your local Harley Davidson dealership. This was kind of, in my memory, the first mass collector's rush to get a Ken doll. I mean, we've had the Barbie one. People were clamoring for these. The secondary market was sky high. I remember calling every Toys R Us and having them put one on hold and rushing over because they had one left in the back room. So production numbers were a little higher than previous releases, but Ken sold out immediately. So that's kind of cool. And then immediately, it seems every couple years again, then we have another shaven style Ken. And they do different gimmicks. This one you could use warm water and the little sponge shaver and his beard disappears, and then you use cold water and the beard comes back. Then we hit 2001, and as we all know, it's Ken's 40th anniversary, and our club is planning the 2001 National Barbie Doll Collectors Convention here in Dearborn, and we wanted to make sure we highlighted Ken, especially as one of the co-chairs. I wanted to make sure that we highlighted Ken. We talked to Mattel. We said we really want to do an anniversary Ken doll. They're like, oh, we have no plans for that. Then they come and they surprised us with giving us a 40th anniversary Ken doll, and he's got a little Ken doll which just fell down, reproduction in the bottom of the box, but he's really nice and he's articulated, and so that was kind of our gift from Mattel from the convention. Another significant point is, so Silkstones became really popular with the Barbie line, and collectors really wanted a Ken doll because you can't just use a vinyl Ken doll with your Silkstone Barbies. There was several requests to Mattel for a Silkstone Ken, and it finally got through. The rumor is that they really didn't want to do a Silkstone Ken, but they did the first Silkstone Ken in this kind of little gift set for the fashion models. Again, he came in the little boxer shorts and t-shirt, he came with an extra suit, and then finally there was something that you could use with your Silkstone Barbies. So in 2004, America's Sweethearts call it quits. Ken and Barbie announced they are parting ways. All good things come to an end. After 43 years, Ken and his beloved Barbie parted ways. If that wasn't big enough bummer for Barbie fans, mere months later, Barbie began dating an Australian surfer dude named Blaine. How did this happen? Well, again, Mattel's ever changing. To promote their new Cali Girl line, Barbie had Barbie fans vote on Barbie's next suitor. In an online poll, Barbie could get back together with Ken, she could date Nature Boy Steven, Adventurous Steven, Blaine the Aussie, or stay single. After more than 1 million votes, Blaine won the throne as Barbie's new beau. So as part of a large publicity promotion by the toy manufacturer Mattel, the day before Valentine's Day in 2004, a press release was issued stating to the world that the famous fashion doll couple, Barbie and Ken, were parting company. Soon thereafter, Toy Fair 2004 introduced another male doll into Barbie's Cali Girl beach-themed line of toys. This was Blaine, a boogie-boarding Australian native Cali guy. The Blaine doll appears on store shelves later in June of 2004. So here we have Cali Guy Blaine. This is obviously Ken, but you don't see Ken anywhere on the box. It's just a Cali Guy. We have Blaine that's marketed. We have a blank box with no Ken brand. And then here is also Blaine as a Cali Guy. So Blaine was very popular for a couple years. During that time period, we had Fashion Fever, which was a fabulous Barbie line. There's no Ken. There's no branding of any Ken during this time period. We just get kind of generic boy dolls or Blaine. So the exception to that is kind of previous. In '04, we have Ken as art director. So maybe Ken is just off running his own business and he's ignoring Barbie and the beach set, and he's off in New York or, you know, doing something fabulous in the art world. Then Mattel kind of hits a little bit of a dilemma, because Blaine is running court for 2 years as Barbie's main man, and as we said, there's no new versions of Ken, kind of, but generic boy dolls. So all of a sudden we're coming up on Ken's anniversary. I'm gonna quickly scoot back over there. Run. So we have the 45th anniversary of Ken, and this is the first time we see a true reproduction of the first Ken. And then in 2006, kind of with that, I'm back. So Ken, this was another hard to find doll. I had to contact FAO Schwartz in New York to find him, and it's called The New Look, and it goes through Ken's doll history on the back, and today he's got another new look. So this is kind of Ken's resurfacing out of the world of no name back to being Ken. And then we hit 2009, and we have the Pop Life series, which is very, very popular, and we have Barbie Collectibles. And this was an exclusive to Barbie Collectibles, and it sold out in mere minutes. And it was kind of that amazing, hard to find, and these things go high on the secondary market as a wonderful piece. So in 2006, after months of silence and introspection, Ken announced to the world that he wants Barbie back, stepping out with the new look to rekindle their fleeting romance. In 2006, again, we get the 45th anniversary Ken. And then in 2009, Ken came to life during New York Fashion Week to help Barbie celebrate her 50th anniversary in style. The duo made their first appearance together in years on the runway at their first New York fashion show. And then that created the popularity for the Pop Life doll, which is a reproduction of the 1968 head mold, which is significant because this is the first time that we have a reproduction of the 68 head mold. In 2010, Barbie's Ken solidifies his place in entertainment and fashion world's history by making more than 50 wardrobe changes in the big screen of Toy Story 3. Ken also appears at New York World's Fashion Night Out in September. So if you go back to the Ken that we showed you way back, the animal loving Ken, I think it was, we have Toy Story 3 Ken, and all of a sudden Ken is hot again, and people are again recognizing Ken because of his success in Toy Story. This time Mattel uses Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, and YouTube to launch an ad campaign for Ken's effort to win Barbie back. Social media accounts for the doll's updated fans on Ken's grand gestures and Barbie's indecision with getting back with her longtime boyfriend. Mattel even launched a web series on Hulu called Genuine Ken. I don't know if anyone else watched it, where 8 men competed to become the great American boyfriend. She says yes. And then on the back we have the vintage, and then the she said yes. So this was a huge marketing campaign for Mattel to run through. Then we hit 2011 and we hit Ken's 50th. Mattel, for whatever reasons, decides not to give us a 50th anniversary Ken. Instead, we get a 50th anniversary, we get a Barbie who's giving Ken a gift wrapped in his signature color. And then at the National Barbie Convention, we get a matching ceramic box. And in this marketing ploy, Mattel does a whole marketing campaign where he gets his own plaid, he gets his colors, he has a whole marketing campaign directed just at him, but we don't get a doll. So to Ken collectors, that was a little disappointing. But also significant during that time frame is we get a Japan Ken. He's the first male doll in the Dolls of the World series. During this period, and at the National Barbie Convention, which very few people know, the AA version of the Barbie and Ken gift set that everyone got actually uses the same 1968 head mold in an African American. To my knowledge, this is the only time this head mold is made in an AA version. So if you run out and find them on eBay, that's kind of a cool thing to notice. So with the popularity of Barbie Basics, we finally get 3 male dolls in the Barbie Basic lines as part of their 002 collection in 2011. It's the t-shirt and jeans collection. And it's kind of significant because we see the Harley Davidson head mold, and then the Ken Tango head mold, and the African American doll uses a head mold that had never been used before. This is a brand new head mold. So in 2012, proving their love was meant to be, Ken and Barbie are still dating and couldn't be happier. The iconic couple is ready to give the world a glimpse into their blissful lives in Malibu with the new animated series, Barbie in the Dream House. I know there's a lot of collectors that watch it. It's based for kids, but I know a lot of adults still kind of enjoy the Barbie in the Dream House. There was someone dressed in the last Barbie convention in that Ken fashion. So kind of jumping towards the end here, we all look for department store specials. And then in 2007, following the success of Mattel and Barbie and the new body types, the height differences, the body type differences, Mattel released a new line of Ken dolls to accompany its diverse Barbie Fashionistas line to be more representative of the male form in 2017. You'll soon be able to choose from 15 new Ken dolls. So this is what was released in the first issue, and then the rest will be issued, I believe, in the next year. So we have 3 different body types, 7 different skin tones, 8 hair colors, and 9 hairstyles. And so as part of this, the most controversial one is called Man Bun Ken, where he's actually got the little style of today. And then we have Cornroll Ken with the cornrows. But you can see we've got, tall and skinny and broad, and so, and then it even went as far as GQ magazine issuing an article on the new Ken dolls. So, and that's the history or a quick timeline of Ken. So hopefully I stayed, yeah.
Those striped trunks, is that something special?
Yeah. So you can stop that now. I'll just, so, so when Ken was introduced, they showed him in a striped swimsuit to coordinate with Barbie. It was never produced, so there's obviously a prototype out there that they used for marketing. So for us older club members that remember Marcia Matalonis, she took a Barbie swimsuit and she edited it to be so that I would have a version of the release. And then, so the 3 pictures you see here are marketing photos that Mattel issued. So, you know, here's a boy and a girl kind of looking at the Kendall line. He's kind of scratching his head, which I've always thought was adorable. And then, again, you know, kind of the book, you know, Measure of Man, because we're always kind of measuring